I want you to touch on the elements that we as men need to be thinking about. What do we need to teach our kids and our children about money? Like in my case, I have 2 kids. I want to have more kids. What are the things that I should be thinking about that I need to instill in my children so they can be way better off than me in the future?
First of all, let's touch on paying your kids tax-free. If you have an LLC, multi-member or single member, which means it's taxed as a partnership or it's what they call a sole proprietorship, taxed as a sole proprietorship, you can pay your kids, each kid, up to your standard deduction tax-free to them. For 2025, that's $15,750. You have 2 kids. That's $31,000 you could have paid your kids that your company got to write off. They don't have to file for. And there's no W-2. Everybody's like, oh, you have to W-2 them. No.
Do you pay them as a subcontractor?
You pay them as a subcontractor virtually. And that's possible because in the Internal Revenue Code, it's non-exclusionary law. Now, I'm not an attorney, I'm an enrolled agent, but I can talk about the Internal Revenue Code and say that non-exclusionary law means if you want to do C and it doesn't contradict anything in the law, you can do it. Exclusionary law says if it doesn't say you can, you cannot. But the Internal Revenue Code is, hey, if we don't say you can't, you can. The law says, A, you can own as a parent an LLC and pay your kids without any FICA, without any, withholding. A. B, anybody who earns less than their standard deduction, not just kids, you, me, hopefully we make a lot more than that. But if you didn't, you don't file, you don't pay tax. So if you want to pay your kids less than their standard deduction and you're paying them from an LLC, they don't pay tax. You deduct it. It's tax-free to them. Think about just from a tax benefit as a business owner, what's possible as long as you keep your kids taken care of. You're taking care of their kids. You're paying for their food, their clothing, and their education. That's required. You can't take the money that you paid them tax-free and go pay for your education. No, you can't do that. You still have to pay for that personally. But you were going to do it anyway. One of the strategies is pay the kids. The next day, have your spouse sign a loan agreement back to your business. That loan agreement could be a demand note that pays 5% a year, which is the minimum the IRS requires. And let's say, I'm making it up, you pay them back all of it plus interest when they're 21. If you put it back into your business, let's say conservatively, and I know you do a lot more than this, let's say your business grows 10% a year. If they're 6, let's say, I think the number in my book is 7, at 21, that's $400,000 you're going to pay them at 21. You've made $800,000, and all of it is, except for the interest, and then the money your business made on the money, tax-free. How can you stay poor? How can you not get wealthy paying your kids? Now, the caveat is they have to have a real business. You have to prove, that 3-year-old, what did they do for your business? And by the way, a lot of people are like, oh, I'll them sweep the floors and pay them hourly. Look, at $15,750, you're going to run into labor laws. Kids can't work that much to make that kind of money. But it doesn't have to be hourly. Rihanna, I think the figure is she made $800 million by the time she was 18, or $80 million by the time she was 18. You think she worked hourly? She provided value. And if you're hiring your kids and you give them specific tasks, what are we doing? Responsibility, agreement, commercial responsibility. And then, so we had a client, they had a bunch of kids. A lot of our clients have a bunch of kids. I don't know what that's about. And they had a 3-year-old, and I'm like, well, we can't really use her. I'm like, well, you could if there was a legitimate business function. And they're like, well, what can she do? He was a general contractor. I'm like, just set up a YouTube channel and go before and after. Here's what it was before dad got it. And here's what it before. And at the beginning of the video, have their cute little blonde kid go, I love my daddy. And then cut to the AB. They have millions of followers. That kid had value. No IRS agent's going to go, well, they really didn't do it. Where do you think our marketing is coming from now? This kid's face and the other kids or whatever. So A, as a parent, and by the way, the rules are they have to be 17 or younger. They have to live with you 6 months of the year. You have to pay for their stuff. So you're paying for them. They can be 22 or younger, but they have to be a full-time student. And from 18 to 22, you do have to pay FICA. But it's still state and federal tax-free. To answer your question more directly, what are we teaching our kids? We need to reprogram anything they're getting in school around saving, around paying off your house, around borrowing money. I'm generally against Dave Ramsey, but if you're stuck and you're like in a loop where you can't pay your bills, Dave Ramsey's that's great, but it's not good for building business because every rich person borrowed money to make business. That's what banks are for, to fund business. And like I said, if you have a problem, business bankruptcy. It's not great, but it's there. And in an LLC, it protects your personal assets. So we train our kids in fiduciary responsibility. You said you do X by X. And if you don't, then there's consequences, financial consequences. You don't get paid or you don't get the value you wanted. And then understanding that saving money is a mistake. You're giving control to the banks. Instead, invest your money. And even small investments compounded over time create massive returns. And pay, instead of saying, oh, I want to buy that ATV. Sure. $10,000, let's say it's a side-by-side, it's $10,000. I'm making it up. $10,000. Great. Dad, I want that. Okay. Can you buy it for me on a loan? I could. And then you pay me back. Again, fiduciary responsibility. I got a better idea though. Why don't you come to work for me here, have my LLC pay you, and then from your investment, you pay it, you buy it. And then we put it in the LLC or we do whatever because, kids can't actually own anything. But you create financial responsibility that, hey, if you invest the money and the proceeds of it can pay for that side-by-side or for that computer or the whatever it is, then great. So if you can train your kids to invest money and then buy what they want from investments, that's the key function of getting wealthy because the taxation on it's less and you're training a situation where kids understand that I make money by investment, not by trading my time. And by the way, time, it's the only non-renewable resource on the planet. We say, oh, I'm spending my time with you. That's not by chance. I only have so much. And we don't know how much it is. I'm a little older than you, but for all we know, I'll have more than you later. We don't know. We just don't know. And every time we spend our time to earn money, what we're really doing is living the American dream for our bosses because they're getting the value because they're not spending their time for money. They're spending their knowledge, their investment for money, which is way cheaper. Cheaper, I'm using this word because your time is invaluable.